Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Commander Drew Brown. My wingman, my main man, my good friend, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, Brother Paul?
Morning, Mr. Drew. I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad to be up here seeing you. We're going to have a nice show today, and I'm excited and ready to go.
So am I. You know why? Because we're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you two badass jet pilots, rumble. Welcome to the Wingman Show. All right, Dr. Paul, you know we start off with a quote, and I love this one. The best index to a person's character is how he treats people who can't do him any good or fight back. That was by Abigail Van Buren. I'll do it again. The best index to a person's character is how he treats people who can't do him any good or fight back. I love that. Don't you, Dr. Paul?
I do. And it's, there's lessons in there too. Because one thing that's I think terrible to see, don't see it a lot, but on occasion, is when someone takes advantage of someone else, particularly in a service position. And I'm thinking mostly of somebody waiting on tables or a waiter or waitress serving food and being really, really nasty. That's bad. It's not smart for a number of reasons. But treating someone bad because, okay, I'm a paying customer, and that's important. But that doesn't mean the person who's serving you is you're literally your slave or something worse.
And it's funny, Dr. Paul, talking about that, usually people who have felt belittled by other people love to belittle other people.
Okay, that makes sense. But hurt people.
Yes.
But I mean, this can occur anywhere, but it tends to occur more in fast food places.
Well, I think it's in all aspects. I think it's how you're raised and how you feel about yourself is how you treat other people. And, believe it or not, that's how my dad and we call God Shorty, because we don't believe that he's all the way up in the sky. We believe he's that little guy that you pushed over. We believe that he's watching when you're not treating that waiter or waitress or any person really good.
That's right. What if a higher spirit, a higher presence doesn't look the way you think he does, doesn't look like you?
That's right. Well, guess what, Dr. Paul? Would you believe 2024 Olympics, they're going to have breakdancing all the way from the Bronx, New York? Can you believe that breakdancing is now going to be an Olympic sport and they're going to premiere it in 2024?
Now, when you mentioned that, I thought you were joking, to be honest with you. It's a very athletic thing, but breakdancing, I honestly don't quite see it. I guess you could do salsa dancing too and other forms of movement. It's okay. I tend to look for competitive sports where you're racing against time. What are they going to do? Judge it on artistry or?
Yes, well, it's just like some of those Olympics, with the ribbons and then the dancers in the water.
Yeah,
it's just a new sport that they're coming up with.
Yeah, figure skating. Okay, sure. Okay.
So it's all the same, and it's just artistic, I believe. Okay. But, talking about athletics, because you said the MMA was supposed to be in the Olympics, but
they were talking about that.
Something?
Yeah, they're talking about that. I don't think.
Well, if breakdancing could be in the Olympics, I believe MMA could be in the Olympics. But how about this, talking about athletics? Did you realize that genetics play a major role in athletics and in training? And they just found out that certain people, less than 31% of all of us, have 19 gene variants in our DNA, and that actually makes us better. It's called the gene called the ACTN3 gene. And that gene actually helps you with adaptability, speed, power, strength, endurance. And one of the most important things we were talking about, it actually helps you not get injured. And we know a lot of players. We've been through this a long time. And some ball players don't get injured. Some athletes just are injury prone and get injured all the time. And other guys like a LeBron or a Michael Jordan, they never get injured, it seems like. But it's real important to know something about this gene. So they did a big test in Essex County in England, and the scientists figured out that the people with this gene, when they went against people without the gene, they did 11.5% better. So they actually had it up on these people. But don't ever forget, if you don't work out and you don't take advantage of exercising and doing something, this gene means nothing. And I love this phrase: hard work beats talent every time if talent refuses to work hard. Dr. Paul, do you think we have this gene?
Well, maybe compared to some, it depends. Because I always wondered about that. Because if you look at historically, or just lately, I've noticed a number of NBA players who are coming onto the scene now, maybe the last few years, and their fathers were players and good players. And some of them are good players, more and more of that. Or their father played and the mother played, or one, or sometimes both. Some of them are very, very, very good, and they equal the parents. But again, we were talking before, there are cases where children of famous athletes follow in the parents' footsteps, and they're not known at all. They're totally different. Everybody's not the same. Won't mention any names, but we talk about, fighters and basketball players.
Oh, we can mention names. Joe Frazier's son, Marvis, wasn't as good as Joe Frazier.
Right. And the sons of Patrick Ewing and Michael Jordan, I think, played college ball somewhere, but I don't know their first names, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but then you have people like Steph Curry, who his dad played in the NBA for so long.
Right.
And I think some of these ball players who have parents that are professionals, they get good training early.
Yeah,
they don't get bad habits early. A lot of us, we learn how to play, but we have bad habits. We have to break those habits and turn them into good habits. Steph Curry learned how to shoot from the very first time he ever shot a basketball.
Yeah, and his brother, Seth Curry, is just almost as good. You don't talk about it.
No, he has a better shooting percentage, actually.
Exactly, yeah. So they're very good. They were doing that as little boys. And I obviously liked it. So, yeah, talent has to show up in practice and be motivated to do it. You may be good at something, may not want to do it. It's not your thing.
But you think about somebody like Larry Bird. I don't think he had that much talent, but his hard work beat the shit out of so many people. Because he's the kind of guy, I told you about Steph Curry, Ray Allen, and Reggie Miller. Those are the three best shooters ever in the NBA. And they had a meeting once when I think Steph broke the record. And the one thing that they all had in common, all three of them, they said that all three of them had keys to the gym. That means all three of them went to practice early and left practice late. Larry Bird came to practice 2 hours early and stayed an hour late every time he played ball. So did Michael Jordan. So people who put this extra effort in and have this gene, they become superstars, I believe.
Yeah, right. So, there's no magic, or the magic's in you.
The magic's in you. And if you have this, well, just look at some of we were talking about Yao Ming and Bill Walton, who had bad feet. They were so good. Yao Ming was 7'6", I think, or 7'5", and he was a tremendous player, but his body just couldn't hold up. And I think that's with a lot of them. But guess what can hold up, Dr. Paul? Look at them badass F-16s behind us. So anybody watching YouTube, man, check out our jets. These badass F-16s are Air Force jets.
Yeah, it's hard to believe these planes have been around. Ones we're looking at really about 45 years or so, maybe more. Of course, it's had upgrades and revisions and changes to them, but it's a beautiful airplane. It's not that big, but very, very capable. Single engine. When we talk about engines, a lot of times two engines give you maybe a little more, I don't say reliability, but some more options if you have a problem with one engine. You just have one. But
well, you know what I think about one engines? People like you, crazy ass Navy jet pilots who flew A-7s off of ships in the middle of the ocean with one engine. That's kind of crazy. The A6 had two engines, and I felt so much better having two. But I guess if I had one, that's all I had.
Yeah, as long as you don't have a problem.
Bad dude there, Dr. Paul. You're a bad dude to fly with just one engine over the ocean.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. Very interesting.
Well, so everybody, if you're watching us on YouTube, hey, hit that subscribe button. We surely would appreciate it. If you're watching us or listening to us on Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio, go ahead and like us and share us. If you're watching it, please put something on TikTok or Instagram. Hit us up in any one of those means, because we have a newsletter on wingmanshow.com. Wingmanshow.com. Our last newsletter had interviewing tips and techniques how to get a job. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine, Laurie, has a business down in New Orleans called Pepperleaf, and she teaches interviewing and tips. But that was our newsletter last time, and we also have a flow line. Also on wingmanshow.com. Write us, ask us a question. Matter of fact, we have one later in the show. Our frequent flow line for all our frequent flyers. That's the people who listen to us all the time. Thank you so, so much. All right, Dr. Paul. You know, the weather has been getting worse, and I don't care if anybody's listening to this or watching this in the summer, winter, spring, or fall. Whatever season you're in, it's more extreme than it used to be. That's because climate change is real. Climate change is real. We're messing up the ozone layer. It's hot as hell here where I am now in the summer, and I bet you it's going to be cold as hell in the winter this year, and it's just getting more extreme. But the way to change this is to stop messing up the ozone layer and start using renewable energy. What is renewable energy? That's very important. Renewable energy is energy that's 24/7 carbon-free. Like wind is renewable because it always keeps coming. You know, Dr. Paul, there are some new things that are happening with energy that you're just not going to believe. For the past 5 months, wind and solar has actually given this country more electricity than coal. So this is happening. For all the people who didn't go to science class, let me tell you something. Wake up, because this is about to happen. And when it happens, what are the oil companies going to do? What are the coal companies going to do? And to me, I think some of them are trying to stop this progress, but like solar and geothermal. Tell me about geothermal energy, because they just did it in Nevada, digging down for hot air.
Yeah, there's geothermal in a number of countries, actually. But, the nuts and bolts of it is when you basically dig I want to say a hole or a passageway down into not the center of the earth, not that far, but a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles or so, where it's really, really hot. You pump some water in there, essentially. The water gets hot, comes back up another hole that you drill in the form of steam, and that steam drives the turbine, and the turbine gives you power. That's
amazing. And you know, we had steam catapults on our ships, and we just saw new catapults on the new carriers that actually go electric magnetic. But we had steam catapults, so steam. How about this one? How about wind? Do you realize, Dr. Paul, that wind is 10% of our energy right now? Right now, wind is 10% of our energy. But this company just took something amazing. You know, those big ass wind turbines, they're like as tall as the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
A company just put one of those wind turbines and condensed it down into a 10-foot box with no blades, so it can't kill birds. And they're putting them on roofs, and they're complementing solar panels. And these little mini wind turbines are 16 times more energy efficient and better than solar. So when you put them together, they're going to be able to actually give you energy for your whole home when they become available.
That's great. When things get small, just like think of satellite dishes, TV satellite dishes. Initially, they were the size of things like you're looking for life in outer space or something, and then they shrunk them down. They're big, ugly things. They're smaller, smaller, smaller. As things get more efficient, they can miniaturize them. You can get more, just like solar. Solar panels are much more efficient today than they were, say, 25 years ago. They can conduct more. And you talk about the geothermal, the renewable energy, and we keep talk about renewable. We think about the the law of conservation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, just change form. So with the geothermal, one thing I didn't say is that you have that steam that you create drives a turbine, but you also have a condenser that will take some of that steam and water, or steam, and turn it back into water, and they shoot it down again, and you do the same process. So it goes from water to steam, back to water to steam, and keeps going up and down, up and down.
So we kind of know about solar. We kind of know about wind. Dr. Paul, I'm about to tell you something's going to blow your mind. scientists have just come up with this enzyme called Mycobacterium smegmatis. Okay, it's a bacteria. It's in the air, and it actually can take the hydrogen gas, H2O. It can take the hydrogen gas out of the air and turn it into an electricity. It comes up with an enzyme called HUC, SUC. It converts atmospheric hydrogen into electricity. Is that not incredible? That means the air around us actually has the power to give us electricity. And you see, when they keep inventing all these little things, there's another one I want you to talk about, that they can actually take electricity from the moisture in the air. They came up with a film that you can put between two electrodes and actually make electricity from the moisture in the air. We're coming up with some heavy duty ideas to produce energy, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, and you can do it with this moisture in the air. You can do it even in the desert. I never think of the desert as having, any moisture in it, but it does, even though you can't detect it. So these little improvements, and it may not be a lot at first, but it'll get more efficient, and you'll be able to generate more electricity. Maybe not enough to run a generator to power your house yet, but enough to do something else small. Maybe as a small piece of equipment, maybe a vehicle, other things.
No doubt about it. They're going to come up with solar cars. You'll never need to pull over for gas.
Right. And you also won't have to worry about, storing like batteries, lithium batteries. The problem is, where are you going to store these things? They're environmentally destructive. Well, with renewable energy, there's nothing to destroy.
We might not turn climate change around, but we need to stop it in its tracks. And you said we're going to be there. Well, guess what? Some of the world is already there. Do you realize that Spain is 50% reliable on renewable energy? 50% of their power comes from renewable energy. Portugal, 100%. Matter of fact, they produced 103% of their energy from renewable energy sources. And they're saying America might get there by 2030. I don't know if that's true, but I know that in Detroit, guess what? All of their municipal buildings are going to solar power. They actually get acres and acres of solar panels. They're going to get acres and acres of solar panels, and they're going to run that electricity into Detroit, and all of their municipal buildings will be powered by solar.
Well, that's amazing. I guess hopefully they don't have too many cloudy days, but it doesn't have to be blazing sunshine to power the solar panels. So that's good. And they'll probably get to the point where they may be able to suck in light from what I call cloudy days.
That's very true. And, we talk about money a lot. This is something that maybe you investors out there look into a little bit more, renewable energy, because I got to believe that it's going to be something one day. I think all the countries who have oil are going to be shit out of luck and not be able to do anything with that oil. Matter of fact, we were talking about Saudi Arabia, Dr. Paul, and you told me they're trying to turn that into a tourist trap. So they realize that they're getting away from oil.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, some parts of the Mideast want to have, basically make them vacation spots for people. I'm not sure I would be headed that way, but it's, from Europe, it's closer, a few hours away.
Yeah, you can hang on the beach because they have nothing but beach there in Saudi Arabia. Maybe no ocean, but a lot of beach. And it'd be 120 degrees. You get a good tan. You know what that brings us to? It is time for a Wingman PSA. 11 facts in life. Fact number 11. The name of my best-selling book is called You Gotta Believe. Dr. Paul, you gotta believe in yourself. If you want to be something on this planet, you gotta believe in yourself. Whether other people believe in you or not, that comes from high self-esteem. Believe in yourself and you can do anything.
I agree. Self-confidence is important. Not necessarily overconfidence, but self-confidence. Knocking away the doubters and the naysayers and the folks who aren't doing anything anyway. Especially in the online world, people are they're just into hating. They say haters. They're it's more frustration. The world's very kind of private and frustrated. Yeah, stay away from those folks. Get away from them. They're not going anywhere. and there's no reason for you to be as miserable as they are. Wish them well and bid them farewell.
And say adios, AMF.
AMF.
You know what
yes.
that means, adios.
Adios.
So how about this one, Dr. Paul? We always talk about our good news, and you and I work very hard to bring good news. And we came up with this. The media usually says if it bleeds, it leads. Well, the Wingman Show believes that if it's good, it should. So I'm going to bring you some news like this. How about paying $50 for $1 million smile? And the reason I say that is because in Japan, there's this teacher for $50 an hour, Kiko Kawano, her name is. In Japan, she will teach you how to smile again. And she's doing this because of the pandemic. Everybody had masks on and nobody was smiling anymore, she believed. So she's now teaching classes how to smile again. And that's $50 an hour. Somebody said, though, Asian cultures usually don't smile. And then you and I got into talking about why people smile while people don't smile. My take on it is that people smile, it shows vulnerability. It shows that they're real human beings. Gangsters, them hard-ass people, they don't smile because they don't want to show their vulnerability. I think Asian cultures, sometimes they don't smile because they don't want to show their vulnerability. I don't know. That's my opinion. What do you think about that, Doc? And are you going to pay $50 to learn how to smile better?
I'm probably not going to pay $50 unless I was going to do it on camera and I was getting ready for a part in the movie or something with you or something. Then I might invest in it. I don't think so. Yeah, so with the smiles, and then some people, I think there's a researcher that said, well, they shouldn't be smiling because they're falling under the influence of Western television or something. Maybe that's the case, or maybe this guy who's criticizing is one of the haters. Maybe he needs to get from behind his computer too. But I've seen people smile and laugh everywhere.
Well, we just did a show that smiling actually sends serotonin and dopamine into your brain, and it makes you feel good. Even if you fake the smile, it actually makes you physically feel better.
That's right, because we talked about laughing yoga. Well, again, it's the laughing part of it. Obviously, there's a smile with the laugh. There's nothing wrong with that. The people who say, oh, we don't do this, whatever, then maybe they're just depressed.
Dr. Paul, you've been to stores lately, and you notice they turned that little keypad around for you to pay. What about this tipping for nothing culture? People are expecting tips and don't do anything for it, and look at you funny if you don't tip them. First of all, I believe in tipping for good service only. And now in restaurants, and a couple of people, I guess, have made this bad. If you have over 5 or 6 people, they actually add on the tip because I guess people run away from tips or something, or some people don't tip. I believe in tipping if you deserve it. I don't believe in tipping for nothing, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of times, even on those tips, if I can, I'll throw some cash because I think if you do some of the automatic systems, the business actually keeps it, and the people don't get it, or they give them like a tiny percentage, which I think is wrong. So I'll just give them a few cents. I don't like to carry change, so if I have any change, it's gone. They can have all the change.
I don't think I've used cash in a long time, but you know what I do with tips, Dr. Paul? I always round them off to the closest dollar. And that's because I do the same with my gas. I always pump to exactly 0.00, as close as I can get. I actually go to the next dollar if I don't. But I do that because when you look at your credit card bills, you should see nothing but zeros. You need to look at it because maybe something's there that shouldn't be there. But somebody taught me that a long time ago. So I always tip up to the closest dollar when I do tips.
Yeah, that's true. I thought about that years ago. I used to do that with gas just to see if I could do it to get it right, and not a penny over. I stopped doing that.
Well, we're talking about tipping for nothing. You and I talked about this little fact, but it's amazing. Children today won't ever see bad reception on anything they view. Because if you're streaming or you're watching television or you're watching videos, there is no more bad reception. Like Dr. Paul and I, we grew up with rabbit ears on our television, and our parents used to make us sometimes go and hold them to get better reception, or put silver foil around all the rabbit ears to get better reception. And sometimes we watch shows in shitty reception and we didn't care after a while.
Didn't care. Yeah.
Children today won't ever see bad reception.
Yeah. Sometimes you couldn't see the picture no matter what you did, but the audio would be okay. So you just listen to it and you see like little figures moving through the snow, essentially. And that was good if you don't know anything. I remember going to parts of the world, many decades ago where you'd see people crowded around TV, particularly in the Caribbean. There might be one TV for, I don't know, a couple, 10,000 people. And it was a magical device. So whatever they saw, which was typically not very good, I've seen some of the foreign TV shows, it's something. It's a cowboy movie.
Believe it or not, people used to listen to sports, not watch sports, but listen to them. And if you want to know the truth, I bet you listening to sports, you had your own imagination what it looked like when somebody hit a home run or knocked somebody out or scored a basket. It was your imagination that made it look good. And I think that was pretty cool back then. That's why reading's so important. Nobody will ever see that book like you see it.
Right. I remember when the Knicks won the first championship in 1970, I listened to that in the radio. You couldn't see it on TV. You had to be in Madison Square Garden. I listened to Mark Albert.
Dr. Paul.
Yeah.
I was in the Garden.
Oh, you were in the Garden. I was not there.
My God. One of the greatest. When Willis Reed came back out, he was hurt. He came out for the 7th game, hit 2 shots. I've never heard in my life anything like that as I did in Madison Square Garden that night. That was one of the greatest things I've ever been to. Remember, if it bleeds, it leads. Well, you know what we say. If it's good, it should. That's what the Wingman Show believes. And we always have let's do this real quick. We have frequent flow line, and a young lady from Atlanta, 41 years old, asked us a real quick question. And she said, should I lease or buy a car? Now, you didn't give me much information, so all I can do is give you a quick rundown on what I think. If you're paying, first of all, you need to know how much you can budget a month for a car. If you budget enough for a car that you can afford, remember, you're going to pay off that car one day, but that car will also start having problems. If you lease a car, you're just paying a monthly note every month, and you get a brand new car every year. Also, with leasing, if you own your own business, you can write that off. So that has something to do with it. But it's about you and your lifestyle. Some people like to fix cars or like to buy old cars and fix them up. So I don't really know what situation you're in, but leasing and buying, I've leased a car. I'm buying mine now, but I've done both.
Okay. Yeah, I've never leased a car, but I agree with what you said. If you have a business, that's all. You can write all that off. I guess the advantage of the lease is that you can typically come in for a lower payment. It really never ends. But there are other costs with that too. You can get in for a little cheaper, but there are going to be a lot of fees, and I think you've got a mileage limitation.
They do. You have to.
I don't know if that's a factor. You got a mileage limitation, and then I guess when your lease is up, you can renegotiate and get another vehicle. But and I think they look at the value of that vehicle, but the value will have gone down. So you have to come out with a little more money. It's not just a free thing. But
unless you go into another lease, they actually don't make you pay that money. They add it on some kind of way. But the one thing about lease that I'd like, Dr. Paul, is you don't have car problems anymore because you're always driving a new car.
Okay. That's an option.
If you can afford it, that's what, I don't know. I don't need car problems anymore. I've had plenty of them when I was younger. All right, Dr. Paul, the name of this show is The Wingman Show, and you have a wingman for us. And I think it's a colonel. I'm not sure. Tell me about our new wingman.
It's a colonel. It's a colonel, and it's a colonel that showed up on a 777, British Airways 777-200. And the colonel came to the rescue because there was no food on the airplane. A group of people were scheduled to fly from Nassau, Bahamas to Heathrow on an 8-hour flight and an 8 or 9 hour flight.
12 and a half.
Yeah, I think 12 and a half from start to finish. I think it's like about 8 hours to do it, but they had delays. Long story short, a long flight like that, you're supposed to have a certain amount of food. Well, the food arrived at the airplane and it hadn't been chilled properly. So the food was too warm, and they realized that they couldn't serve it. And I guess there was no one to either fix the chiller. I guess it was a chiller on the airplane broke, maybe not enough maintenance. And they didn't want to take a chance and have people get sick. And I've been sick in those situations. That is not good. Not as a flight crew person. I wasn't flying. I just finished flying, and I was down for 2 days. So to avoid any risk of food contamination and illness, the crew went out and bought a bunch of KFC in the airport, and they were passing out buckets of chicken to people flying on an international flight who didn't appreciate that too much, especially probably those in business class. And I think British Airways gave them a voucher to get some food on them when they got back to England. But it sounded like just a bad situation. But the crew, through the airline bought a bunch of KFC. I guess that's all they could get in that little place.
Yeah, but Doc, you forgot to tell him one thing. And the 12 and a half hours was from the Turks and Caicos to Heathrow. That was the difference in the hours of the flight. But the point being, they also said they only gave them one piece of chicken per passenger. A brother can't get a 3-piece flying from Turks and Caicos to London. I can't get a 3-piece. It's like Chris Rock. Remember in that movie said, can a brother get a rib? One rib.
No rag. Yeah, I do remember that well. And I think we'll show a picture of them handing out with the big bucket of KFC. That's rough.
Well, Dr. Paul, we always end it like this. Whatever is beautiful to you, whatever is meaningful to you, and Dr. Paul, for you and all our listeners, whatever makes you happy, may you have that today and forever. I pray for peace.
I pray for peace too. And again, we appreciate all those for listening, liking, and sharing this message. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe so you'll get an alert when we put out something new.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, and goodwill towards all men and women.